People think they'd know. That's the biggest lie. Everyone says the same thing after the news breaks. He seemed so normal. As if evil is supposed to announce itself. As if killers walk around with blood on their clothes and insanity dripping from their mouths. My dad coached Little League. He held doors open for strangers. He donated canned food every Thanksgiving. He cried during sad movies. And at night, he butchered people like animals. The first body they found was missing its hands. I remember that now because Dad carved the Thanksgiving turkey the same week. Steady hands, patient cuts, perfect slices. Back then I didn't connect things. I was 16 and stupid enough to believe monsters looked like monsters. Dad looked tired. That was all. Our house sat at the edge of town, surrounded by dead woods that never seemed to move right in the wind. Mom used to call them black trees. After she died, the house changed, not haunted, not cursed. Just empty in a way that felt infected. Like grief had soaked into the walls. Dad stopped smiling with his eyes after the funeral. The rest stayed the same. Routine, routine, routine. Every morning, coffee, shower, work, boots. Truck leaving at 6:45. Every night, home at 5:32, dinner, news, bed. It was mechanical. Like watching somebody imitate a person perfectly. Then came the night I woke up, 2:13 a.m. The hallway light was off. That bothered me instantly because Dad never forgot it, never. I sat up slowly. The house felt wrong, not quiet, listening. I checked outside my window. Dad's truck was gone, my chest tightened. I hadn't heard him leave. Then headlights swept across my ceiling. The truck rolled back into the driveway, slow, calm. I heard the garage door groan open. Metal clanked softly. Then footsteps entered the house, heavy, measured. I cracked my bedroom door slightly. Dad stood in the hallway wearing black from head to toe, black hoodie, black gloves, and carrying a large tool bag that dripped something dark onto the hardwood floor. At the time, I told myself it was mud. I know now it wasn't. He turned toward my room. I slammed myself back into bed and shut my eyes. The door creaked open. I could hear his breathing, not panicked, not rushed, controlled. Like someone coming home from work. I opened my eyes barely enough to see him. There was something on his cheek, a streak, dark, wet blood. My blood turned to ice. He walked to my bedside. For one horrible second, I thought he knew I was awake. Then he leaned down and kissed the top of my head. "Good night, buddy," he whispered. His voice sounded warm, loving. That almost made me scream. Then he walked away. I listened to him go downstairs. Heard the washing machine start. And somewhere beneath the pipes and humming machinery, I swear I heard someone crying from the garage, very faint, very weak. I told myself I imagined that too. I didn't sleep again. Morning came smelling like bacon and coffee. Dad stood at the stove humming softly. Sunlight filled the kitchen, normal. Everything looked normal. That's what made me feel insane. "You sleep all right?" he asked. I stared at him. There was dried blood beneath his fingernail, tiny, almost invisible. He noticed me looking. Slowly tucked his hand into his pocket, then smiled. "You look pale." The news came on behind him. A college student missing. Last seen leaving work. Police asking for information. Dad flipped the channel instantly, too fast, way too fast. "People disappear every day," he muttered. Then he handed me pancakes. After that, I started noticing things everywhere, smells, sounds, patterns. Dad taking late night drives. Burn marks in the fire pit out back. Black garbage bags double, wrapped with duct tape. Sometimes I'd wake up at night and hear heavy footsteps pacing the hallway outside my room, not moving. Just standing there, breathing. Once I opened the basement door, and heard chains rattling below before Dad suddenly appeared behind me. "So nosy lately," he said quietly. His hand squeezed my shoulder too hard. Not enough to bruise, enough to warn me. Another night I heard him talking in the garage. I thought someone was with him. But when I listened closely, he was talking to himself. "No," he whispered calmly. "You don't get to cry now." Something wet slapped against concrete, then silence. The second body they found had no teeth. Dad stopped making eye contact with me after that. Not because he suspected me, because he was changing. Whatever mask he wore was slipping. I'd catch him staring at strangers too long, watching women jog past the house, watching old men at gas stations, like he was imagining their insides. One afternoon I came home early from school. Dad didn't hear me enter. He sat alone in the living room, watching an old VHS tape. Mom was on the screen laughing at something off camera. Dad stared without blinking. The room smelled rotten. Then I realized why. There was blood on his shirt cuff, fresh. He looked up slowly. We stared at each other. Neither of us spoke. Then he calmly turned the TV off and said, "You hungry?" Like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't decaying in front of me. The attic changed everything. I found it during winter break. Dad was at work. At least I thought he was. The attic ladder was hanging down. I'd never seen it open before. Cold air spilled from above, carrying that awful metallic smell. I climbed carefully. The beam from my flashlight shook across plastic tarps and storage bins. Then it landed on the tool bag, black, stained, waiting. Inside were knives wrapped in towels, gloves, zip ties, women's jewelry, driver's licenses, photographs. God, the photographs. People tied to chairs, crying, bleeding. One picture showed a man with his mouth sewn shut using black thread. Another showed a woman missing both eyes. In every photo, my father stood in the background, watching, not smiling, worse, expressionless, like this was work. Then I found the videotapes, dozens, labeled by dates. My stomach folded in on itself, and downstairs. The garage door opened. Dad was home. I heard his boots below me, then silence, complete silence. "Son." His voice drifted upward calmly. "I know you're up there." Terror hit me so hard I almost threw up. "You should come down now." I climbed slowly. Dad stood beneath the attic ladder, no anger, no panic. That made it worse. He looked disappointed, like I'd read his diary. He glanced at the bag in my trembling hands, then sighed. "I really hoped you'd never see that part of me." We sat in the kitchen for almost an hour before he spoke again. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. I couldn't stop shaking. Dad looked exhausted. "You know what the worst part is?" he asked quietly. I said nothing. "I love you more than anything." Tears filled his eyes, real tears. "That's the only real thing left inside me." Then he looked directly at me. "And that scares me." I finally found my voice. "How many people?" He rubbed his jaw slowly. I stopped counting after 20. I almost vomited. Dad watched me carefully. "You want to know something funny?" His voice cracked into a weak laugh. "They all begged exactly the same. The room felt poisoned. You're sick. I know, no, you're evil." That word hit him harder. His eyes watered instantly. "I tried to stop after your mother died. You killed people before her." Long silence, then yes. My entire body went cold. Mom never knew, or maybe she did. Maybe that's why she looked sad near the end. Maybe she saw pieces of him nobody else could. Dad leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "The first person I killed was 16, Jesus Christ. I hit him with a rock until his face collapsed." He said it the same way someone talks about changing a tire, flat, emotionless. I thought I'd feel guilty after. He looked at me. I slept like a baby, the worst part. He never threatened me, never once. That would have been easier. Instead, he kept loving me, making dinner, asking about school, helping me with college applications, while human beings rotted beneath our house. That's what destroyed my mind. How could someone hold two truths at once? How could the same hands tuck me in at night and skin strangers alive? I started seeing pieces of him inside myself too. That terrified me most. Sometimes I'd watch people and wonder what Dad saw, weaknesses, fear, me. I stopped sleeping. Started locking my bedroom door. One night I woke to the sound of footsteps outside it, then scratching, slow, gentle scratching. Dad's voice came through softly. "You think I'd hurt you?" I didn't answer, I never could. Silence. Then quietly, "But sometimes I wonder what you'd look like inside." I froze. The scratching stopped. Then he walked away. And I realized something horrible. He meant it not as a threat, as curiosity. The final confrontation happened in March, cold rain. Fog thick enough to swallow headlights. Dad left around midnight. I followed him. Part of me still hoped I was wrong somehow. That there'd be an explanation. There wasn't. The cabin sat deep in the woods, beside an abandoned quarry. Dad dragged a screaming woman from the truck. She couldn't have been older than 25. Her wrists were zip-tied so tightly blood covered her fingers. I watched through the broken cabin window. Tools hung from the walls, hooks, chains. Plastic sheets soaked dark brown. Dad noticed me almost instantly. Our eyes met. And instead of anger, he looked sad. The woman sobbed hysterically when she saw me. "Please help me." Dad looked between us quietly. Then he said the words that still rot inside my skull. "She followed children home from school." I stared at him. "She liked little girls." The woman screamed that he was lying. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. That's the sick thing, I'll never know. Dad stepped closer to me. Rainwater dripped from his hood. "You still think evil looks simple?" The woman begged me again, cried, promised money, promised anything. And I stood there frozen, while my father picked up a hammer. "Son," he whispered gently, "if you walk away now, you can still pretend you're different from me." My chest felt hollow. Dad looked at me with tears in his eyes. "But if you stay," he didn't finish. He didn't have to. The woman screamed as he grabbed her hair, and I didn't move, not once. I just stood there listening to the sounds a human body makes when it stops being treated like one. By the end, I was crying harder than she was. Dad wasn't crying at all. We drove home before sunrise. Blood soaked through Dad's gloves onto the steering wheel. The heater hummed softly. Neither of us spoke for miles. Then finally he looked at me and smiled weakly, not proud, relieved. Like he'd been alone for a very long time. "You understand now," he whispered. And the worst thing I've ever done in my life was realizing he was right.